welcome to MagicGatheringStrat. I'm Dan, and today we're gonna talk about podcasts, because this is the top 10 Magic the Gathering podcast, April 2013 edition. And this time I have help. It's Will. He has helped me compile this list, and he will be on the next edition in person. He couldn't make it this time. We do a website together, mtgostrat.com. Check it out. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about which podcasts are the best for Magic. I made some rules since last time. For a podcast to qualify for the top list, it has to have delivered at least 11 episodes. So that means that, for example, Pit Sims and Magic the Amateuring that made the list last time couldn't make the list this time. But both shows have produced at least 11 episodes now. But there are podcasts popping up everywhere. So we begin looking at podcasts when they reach 11 episodes. The podcast must be only about Magic the Gathering. We're looking mostly at strategy and entertainment. The podcast must have delivered one episode during the last calendar year, so during 2012. And the podcast can't have a jury member on the cast. So if we have someone who's judging this, I'll get back to that later, it's not just me and Will. You can't be a jury member, you can't be a host of a podcast and we judge it. I'll get back to that rule. Okay, what are we looking for in podcasts? We are looking for strategy. That's the one biggest thing. We're looking for strategy, information, for spikes. And that's what we want. I think that is what makes the best podcasts. We are looking for casual stuff as well. But what we're not looking for at this point is metagame updates. There are too many metagame updates out there and too little strategy. Let In Contention, Horde of Notions handle the metagame updates, please. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and just the metagame updates start to drive me crazy. Some podcasts like In Contention is there just for the metagame updates, and then it's okay, but not every podcast has to do it. The metagame information also quickly dates. It gets dated quickly, and it's very shallow. So I would like to see podcasts that go deeper into whatever subject they cover, but they go deep into it and don't be too shallow. Of course, we're looking to get entertained. That's why we play the game. So I think a lot of podcasts think they're more entertaining than they are, but casual fun stuff, yes, to a degree, that's good. And this outlook, I give you this outlook because this is what colors our judgment on podcasts a lot. So if you feel that your podcast has a very low score, please take this into account, and somebody who values other things will value other things. But that is also why we will have a call out for jury members later in this show. So before we go to the Big Ten, I like to show you this list because there are a lot more than 10 Magic podcasts and a lot more good Magic podcasts than 10. So this is the 11 to 25 on the list this month. Horde of Notions. I'm not sure if it was an April joke or not. Is Chris Lansdale still around? Not sure. Commander Cast, a lot of people have recommended Commander Cast. I don't play Commander personally, so this position might still be very low for it. I can't get around that Chewie is a very charming character, and he has done a lot for the podcast community. And Monday Night Magic is a great show. Nerdivorce is a favorite of Will's, and he'll speak more about that. And the Top 8 Magic is the final one I will mention here. I love hearing BDM talk about Magic. He's maybe the single most fascinating character to talk about Magic. But I don't very much appreciate him talking about other stuff than Magic. So Top 8 Magic is very uneven. But good when they talk about Magic. Okay. Without further ado. Okay, one further ado. here is number 2640, and the list actually extends deeper than that. But I'll let that be your pause moment there, for we are going to number 10. I didn't know. Last time I did this list, I didn't look at Wizard's own podcasts. But then I felt that was unfair, and I had to take this into account. Drive to Work is a very content-heavy podcast by a very interesting guy, and it talks about the core of Magic design, and it's just great. I was very fascinated to listen to it. It's just business all the way through. Mark also talks about one design topic about Magic from the moment he starts his card till the moment he arrives at the office, and then he just quits. So very focused, a lot of content. Mark Rosewater is quite a character, and I know there are a lot of people that don't like him, but I do. Before I proceed, I must explain my weird accent. It got some comments last time. I'm from Sweden. We know some English in this country, but we talk it like drunk Vikings. That's why I sound like I do. Okay, back to the list. At number 9 we have In Contention. I heard a lot about people talking about how good this show used to be. I didn't listen to it back then, before it became Star City Games radio. But among all the metagames updates, this is the best one. And if you want to know what is happening in the metagame, these guys know. So this is the only podcast you need to listen to if you're interested in metagame updates. At number 8 we have Delving into Draft. They have grown, I think. The show has improved, absolutely. Their accents are still great, and they are on the casual side for a draft podcast, but that fills a niche. I think drafting is a very, very good subject to talk about on a podcast, because drafting always evolves, whereas something like Pauper, it doesn't evolve as fast, it doesn't change as much. So you always have something to talk about. I think there could be like a daily podcast about drafting almost. And there's absolutely more space for drafting podcasts. What can I say? The Scots are doing it great. Thanks, guys. At number 7 we have another kind of accent. Heavy meta. This is a very uneven show, but when it's good, it's super good. And I don't know if the language really is necessary, but now it's become a trademark. So whereas some other podcasts try to be polite and speak nicely, these guys don't. And yeah, they drink and curse all the way through, but it is quite interesting, and the content is good. I love that they have some finance touches as well. I definitely think we need more MTG finance casts, but that's probably just me. Heavy Meta has a lot in common with Pit-Imps at number 6. Pit-Imps do tournament coverage, and I think they have niched themselves more efficiently than Heavy Meta. Pit-Imps is a bit on the fucking drink side as well. There are drinking, and the drunk cast, they did episode 10 was a drunk cast. It was really bad. It was horrible, but at least they tried it, and I'm inspired. I think podcasting drunk is probably extremely fun to do, but it's often not as fun to listen to. It becomes very casual and unfocused. But the other episodes are great, and Pit-Imps are great at covering tournaments. And this is something I don't see other podcasts doing as much. But they're actually going more like a sports show, going into results, that who won and why, what did he play, etc. Much less metagame, much more like a sports report. And I really like that touch. It's great. So we're moving into the top 5 of the list, and at number 5 we have Pauper to the People, running strongly. At episode 105 is about to come out. Yeah, Chris Plummer, special credit to him, great host. This is the Pauper podcast. I am Spike, and I think Pauper to the People is too casual at times, absolutely. But overall, it's a great cast. And if you're interested in Pauper, you should listen to Pauper to the People. They have these extremely spiky moments when they suddenly go into a deck and break it down for a while. But then they talk about video games for a quarter of an hour. So it's uneven, but it's a great cast. I like it. And this is probably the cast I've been most faithful to. I listened to all 105 episodes, and I think that says something about the quality of the cast. As we move up the list then to number 4, we come to the first cast that really provides what I want. And this is East West Draftcast. This is another draft podcast. Maybe it's just a draft, but the sequencing episode, I think it was episode 74, really made me reconsider this whole podcast, because it was fantastic. And they go into details about gameplay, and that's what I want from a podcast very much. Real, concrete hints that will help you improve your game now. And I'm amazed at the quality of the content. I think the guys, I might be wrong about this, but the guys that do East West Draftcast is quite high-level tournament players, and it's maybe even more spiky than limited resources. But I think they have found their position very well, and they complete limited resources now. I'm amazed. Good job, guys. We are moving into the top 3, and at top 3 we have Brainstorm Brewery. I am partial to finance podcasts, and this is absolutely the best one. This helps me finance my Magic Online habits, and they are so correct. It's scary. I followed the things they said, like go heavy into this card now, and it works more than it doesn't work. I don't, except the Seance thing, I haven't really received one bad call from them. They told me to pick up Mission Mortars. They told me to pick up forgot the name of the card. Blasphemous Act, and they rose 500% in a few weeks, so that was pretty good. Overall, it's a fun cast. They're a bit casual, but their finance information is gold, and the guys who do the cast are really good people at finance, and they do write good articles and stuff, and they're sort of the hub of the MTG finance community in a way. And if you read their stuff, you'll find all the links you need to get into actually financing your Magic Online habit or your Magic paper habit by trading. Alright, so I'm a spike. I like selling Magic cards to finance the habit. I want sequencing plays, and I want strategy tips and tactics, and I don't like when casts go too casual. But number 2 has never been anything else but casual. This is Magic the Amateuring, and when I listen to it, I understand that, hey, I really do want to get entertained. I start laughing at the most inappropriate times. I train in a group in the gym. We're like 18 people standing on machines, and music is pumping, and I have Magic the Amateuring in my ear. And I suddenly just start laughing and look like an idiot. Or I walk down the street and I just start laughing like an idiot. They are pretty inappropriate. They are actually on the same level almost as... they say fuck less, but they say more more advanced things than that. Suddenly, randomly, than heavy meta. And the idea is that Ben, I didn't change this last time. He commented personally that he wasn't Ken, and of course I know he was Ben. I just wrote wrong, but anyway, Ben and Maria is running the show, and Megan, who was an initial host, she has been like touring Europe and staying away from the podcast to the point where other people have been on more than her. But they are just a happy bunch, and they just do crazy stuff. And well, It's chemistry is fantastic, and it's just so entertaining. There is absolutely no useful information in the whole podcast, but I still love it, and I had to admit that this was the #2 Magic podcast out there. I also seen other podcasts referencing, talking about Magic the Amateuring, and if you at all like Magic, if you at all remember what it was like to be new at Magic, then do listen to Magic the Amateuring. I'm happy to see that they have delivered new episodes at a fairly steady rate, and yeah, they are great. So, very boringly then, limited resources is #1 again, and this podcast just exists on another level. This is the height of Magic podcasting, and I think everybody who who wants to be into podcasting should listen to limited resources. They just lost their host, one of their hosts. There are two, Marshall Sutcliffe, and someone will host this because John Laux will not do it. I am right now actually listening to it's on my iPod right now, the farewell episode, the final interview with John Laux, because as Ryan Spain before him, he got a job at Wizards. So being a host of limited resources is obviously a pretty good way into getting to work at Wizards. This podcast is about drafting, but it's also about Magic tactics and strategy, and it's about playing Magic, and it's using drafts as a vehicle. But there are information on mana curves, there's information on deck building. There's just so much useful information in this. I think the show is a lot better when they go into topics such as mana curves than when they just do random cracker packs, but the show is always good, and I love the way they do it. It's just, this is the best Magic podcast still. I wish someone could get close to them, but it's just so much better than anything else. So if I can listen to only one Magic podcast, it will be limited resources. I made a special page this time, best entertainment then. So I think if you just want to be entertained about Magic, you should listen to these shows. Yeah, because they are really entertaining. And I also wanted to feature a host every time I do this show, and this time I will feature Marshall Sutcliffe, the sort of remaining host on limited resources. Marshall, I recognize a lot of myself in him. I used to be a poker professional, and Marshall plays poker for a living and do Magic stuff for a living. So he's like living the dream, and he has this great, he's writing limited information as well on the Mothership, and he has this great talent for being the average guy. He will talk as if he is the average Magic player, and it's just, you will identify with him and what he's doing, and he gives perfect reasons for the things he does, and is so extremely honest, open. You get the insight into his mind. He's just a fantastic podcast host, so listen to him if you want to learn how to make podcasts. I see, having listened to more Magic podcasts than anybody ever should, I see an opening. I think there is definitely room to make a modern podcast and perhaps a legacy podcast, being strictly dedicated to that format. Talk about matchups, talk about deck breakdowns, talk about play tactics, moments in Magic. Look at the Pauper podcast and what they have done, because they are the most one format podcast. And one format podcast, I think, is, there should be more of them. Absolutely. Maybe not standard, because standard changes often, but if you make a modern podcast, your content will still have some value 2 years down the line. So I would very much like to see this, and I haven't seen it yet. Not like the Pauper podcasts. So modern, legacy, perhaps there is for vintage or classic. Yeah, that's probably unfair not to say that there isn't, but I would like one for modern. So what did we miss? let us know. Tell us, what podcast have we not listened to enough? I must admit that having listened to this many podcasts, I tend to discard a podcast if I don't like one episode. So there are some podcasts I haven't listened to more than one of. Comment on this subject on YouTube, preferably. Send me a private message on YouTube, or comment in the comments to this clip. And if you tell me a podcast that I haven't listened to, I will listen to it. I know there's a finance podcast out there that I haven't listened to. I don't think they're up to 11 episodes yet, but finance podcast I will listen to the first episode. By the way, if you make a first episode, don't make it about this is who we are. Oh, I started playing Magic then, because nobody's interested in the first episode. Provide good content in the first episode, and then gradually people will get interested in the hosts. Actually, that is what made me more than anything else make the 11 plus episode thing, because I couldn't listen to one more introductory episode. It was like I didn't want to know about more people. I just want content. So who is this guy? Who am I? Why do I think that I can rate podcasts? And I know this is pretty arrogant on my part. So I don't want to be alone anymore. I got Will now, but I want more. If you are someone who listens to 15 plus podcasts, and if you want to have your name on this and take flame from, I have not received a lot of flame, but if you want to help out with this show, you should send me a private message on YouTube on the MagicGatheringStrat channel, and I'll consider you for a position as a jury member on this show, and then we'll judge podcasts together. Finally, this is how to get in touch with me. Please subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook. Helps a lot. MagicGatheringStrat is a channel mostly about any form of magic. We mostly do drafts, sealed, pauper, and modern today. But we are 4 people making videos. We are 6 people who write on MagicGatheringStrat.com, and we like to be more. So if you could provide especially standard content, we would be very interested in that. Thank you for watching. This has been MagicGatheringStrat, best top 10 Magic the Gathering podcasts, April 2013 edition. I am Dan.